You just got to tie the damn nerd words to the concept. But implicitly understanding the difference between customer and client and when the disclosures are required is important. And knowing the fiduciary relationship, knowing no, we talk about that tonight. Never mind. So on page 115, we're doing the bookends to chapter 9. We're doing 8 and 10. Our running objectives, we're going to describe the fundamentals of real estate brokerage and licensing laws. Talk about some antitrust stuff. And then we'll talk about some professional organizations that you as realtors can become members of. And then we'll talk about some technology that exists now and technology that has enabled us to evolve as an industry. Turning the page. So the page 116 is not important to us as students. But the business of real estate brokerage point of the page is that it is regulated by the law. And you know what? You'll hear me throughout this course tell you, I feel strongly about this being on it. I feel strong. But the only question you'll ever hear me guarantee is going to be on the exam is, what is the purpose of real estate license law? To protect the public. Again, I know I say a lot of things repetitively, and I love to compare real estate to cars because they are so comparable. What is the purpose of driving laws? To protect the public. That's right. So over here on page 117, real estate brokerage. The first sentence, you might as well highlight it in case you're not completely confident of what the concept of brokerage is. Simply the business of bringing parties together. Every industry's got them. The world is full of brokers. They are necessary. We are business cupids. We introduce parties, and we get paid for being the go-between. So, we call ourselves salespeople, interestingly enough. The only person that can sell a property is the owner by signing a deed at the closing. In actuality, what you and I, what you're about to be, is we are hired when we take a listing. We are hired to procure a ready, willing, and able buyer. And that's only half the job. When that ready, willing, and able buyer steps up to the plate and makes a full price, unconditional offer, then we have earned our living. Guys, I'm going to tell you when to highlight. You're probably looking for what I'm spoiling y'all. Y'all know I'm going to tell you where and when to highlight. So I'm probably ahead of myself. What I just said is somewhere else. You'll highlight it there. But again, back to the point. I'm hired to procure a ready, willing, and able buyer who hopefully steps up and makes a full price unconditional offer. At that point is when I have earned my commission. The deed ain't got to transfer hands because, frankly, sellers will change their mind and sometimes about selling. And sometimes they'll refuse a full price unconditional offer. And you're frustrated. And you might be frustrated because you hadn't hired your damn car from the bank. Because you missed 3 payments, they're going to repo it. So sometimes when finances get tough, some of this stuff that seems academic and, nerdish, it becomes important. A seller may say, I'm not selling my house to them. Their son beat my son up at football practice last year. Wouldn't sell my shirt on to him if he was cold. So, out of pettiness sometimes. A lot of times people will just, they start packing and the kids start crying. We don't want to move. Parents will call you up, after you done spent some money catering an open house. We decided we don't want to sell, Mark. The kids are all upset. But I'm ahead of myself. You'll see where we're at in a couple of pages. Right now, let's just drop down to the next paragraph. A licensed brokerage business can take many forms as permitted by law. Could be a sole proprietorship, sole meaning one. Corporation, limited liability company, partnership with another broker. Could be an independent company, either a regional or national franchise. Guys, we've got a lot of those as satellite classrooms throughout Alabama. We work with real estate companies and helping them recruit and We don't align ourselves with knuckleheads. We only align ourselves and affiliate with reputable people who you would be tickled to work with. So as a student in the satellite classroom, you've already got a very good idea of someone to go drink a cup of coffee about an opportunity. But yeah, they're your Century 21s, your Coldwell Bankers, your Prudentials, your Better Homes and Gardens, your Weicherts, your ERAs, your EXPs, your Keller Williams, your Exits. Gee whiz, a lot of them. Realty South, the largest company in Alabama, they are not independently owned franchises like all those others I just rattled off. Realty South is owned, gee whiz, I'm not sure who owns it right now. Once upon a time, it was owned by Berkshire Hathaway, but now Berkshire Hathaway is branding real estate companies. Yeah, they might be an arm of Berkshire Hathaway. They just don't brand themselves as Berkshire Hathaway. They still brand themselves as Realty South. But regardless, it is not a franchise. They are not independently owned. They are all branch offices under an umbrella. The bottom of page 117, relationship of broker and sales associate. Right now, and as far as I have been in the business, and for 20, 30 years before, that relationship has been one of an independent contractor. Now, guys, first of all, let me make the disclaimer that I realize not everybody listening to me right now is going into residential sales. Some of you are going into commercial real estate, either property management, development, or sales. Some of you are investors, and you just want a license so that you can participate in the commission on a property that you might be trying to buy, and it happens to be listed. You might be going into raw land sales, but statistically, the majority of you going into residential sales. And the custom, again, for as long as I've been in it, for many years preceding, independent contractors versus employees. And you know what independent contractor means? That means you're going to be autonomous. No one can tell you what to do, how to do it, when to do it. Can't give you quotas, production demands. Can't tell you to make 100 phone calls a day. Can't tell you to go knock on all the names. They can either one of two different things. Your company can either be satisfied with you or unsatisfied with you. That's it. It's a beautiful thing being independent, being autonomous, not having to answer to anybody. But at the same time, my worst enemy is me. I don't know who your worst enemy has been your whole life, but I am the reason I haven't achieved perhaps what I could have. And sometimes you're a victim to yourself. You're an independent contractor. If you don't have the discipline to require of yourself what others aren't requiring of yourself, you might not meet the call. So it's an interesting test psychologically for those that haven't ever worked for themselves, but it's a beautiful thing, frankly. There are legitimate reasons why the real estate industry went that way. First of all, let me go ahead and stop and back up and remind you one more time, the custom nationwide is for real estate salespeople to be an independent contractor. When I say custom, I mean no one has established it as a rule or a requirement. The states and the government can't tell us how to work. The industry, like the National Association of Realtors, can't make such decisions. If that were to happen, that would be antitrust violations, coincidentally, on the agenda tonight, antitrust laws. So the custom, in other words, just how things happen to be working out. Like the custom in the South is we eat grits. It ain't a damn law. You ain't gonna get put in jail if you get caught eating cream of wheat at the Huddle House. Grits is our custom. So, me and you would probably sit down and talk right now, and you would agree with me and probably answer the question why real estate companies went to that custom, because it relieves companies of a significant amount of overhead. If you've ever been an employee and seen the FICA part on your check, first of all, understand your employer is paying your whole check, not just what you put in your pocket. They paid all them damn taxes that they see, and we have to match your FICA. And you got the payroll tax, unemployment, workman's comp, etc. So by being able to call my people independent contractors, boy, it relieves me of a tremendous amount of overhead. And so there's the benefit to the company. The benefit to the practitioner is no one has arbitrarily put a ceiling over you and told you how much you can earn. There is no ceiling above you. Your earning potential is up to you. I'll tell you something shocking. For the last 25, I say 25, we make it go back 30. The top producing salesperson in Birmingham, residential, has not made less than $1 million a year. And there are multiple people making $1 million a year. And you may think, yeah, they selling big old houses, $1 million. No, they are not. Average transaction. I remember checking 4 years ago, divided their, production by their average of transaction, 240,000. That's hustling. There are overachievers in this world. There are people who are consumed with work. I ain't either one, and I'm okay with that. If you are either of those, an overachiever or a workaholic, you are about to land in nirvana because you're an independent contractor. Real estate can rule you 24/7. And I know people, they're just workaholics. They got to work, they got to work. So they are in heaven in real estate, and they tend to make a lot of damn money because they're on constantly. Most of us like to relax, sleep and eat and spend time with our family. But you go to State Farm working accounts receivable, Mr. Yarber, we're going to pay you $13 an hour, and we're going to set you on this row with everybody else making $13 an hour. So at the end of the week, your check is magically the same size as the check that the fool guy sits beside you that FaceTimes their damn kids all day on the phone while you busting your can. So real estate is groovy. You're in charge. Have you ever wanted to make money, but you was too scared to go ask for a damn raise? Well, now all you got to do is look in the mirror and ask for a raise. So, yeah, it's power, but it's also a booger, because we are our own worst enemy. Turning the page to page 118, the third bullet down. I'd like for you to highlight a portion of the second sentence of the third paragraph. Just highlight these 6-7 words. Can receive compensation only from that broker. Well, in the third paragraph, second sentence, just highlight can receive compensation only from that broker. There's going to be 2 or 3 questions on the exam where they want you to know that you will never be paid by a buyer, by a seller, by another company. If you ever get paid, your company's name better be in the left-hand corner of the check, okay? Because remember, you're invisible. You work for the person who the law allows to provide services to the public. You work for the person that allows the law allows them to be compensated for providing those services. Like, for instance, you could have a question. I've heard this is on the exam. It says your buyer client wants to pay you a bonus because you did a bang-up job. Your buyer client described a house to you to find that they didn't think existed in the world, and son of a gun, if you didn't find it in a week. And they're like, my God, Mark, you went above and beyond. You got some magic powers. Can't we give you a little $500 bonus? The answer is yes and no. They can pay you a bonus, but who does it have to be paid to before you get it? The broker. That's right. Again, there'll be 2 or 3 questions. Challenging. Make sure that you'll never get paid from anybody other than your broker. In the next paragraph, you see the word managing broker, bold. Why? Because soda and pop. We call it a qualifying broker. There are about 5 states, I think. I'm not sure. A small number. They call them a managing broker. You even go a little further to the managing broker. You see some of them call them supervising brokers. But guys, I want you to hang your hat on qualifying broker. Okay, as far as you're concerned, throughout this course, every office has to have a qualifying broker. So we're at the bottom of the page, still talking about independent contractor versus employee. See, when you're an employee, someone has power over you. They tell you when to be at work, how long your lunch is, when you can go home, how many sick days you get, how many personal days you get, how many vacation days you get. They determine your wage. They determine your workload. Not a lot of say-so on your part. I remember seeing a friend of mine, a female friend, just body heave cry. Her favorite uncle, who was only a couple of 3 years older than her, had died in Houston, Texas. And her boss would not let her off to go to the funeral. We just happened to be going to lunch, me and her and a couple of other friends. And she just couldn't control herself. And I just thought, I cannot imagine somebody telling me I can't go to somebody's funeral. Luckily, I've only worked for like 3 people my whole life. I bust tables at Shoney's. I think, a year and a half. I served my country, and I was on fries for 2 weeks at Wendy's. I say I've not worked for anybody. I have worked as reps for companies, but I was completely autonomous. And I've never taken that for granted. It's a beautiful thing. Every minute of every hour is in the palm of my hand. Why? Because it belongs to me, damn it. I do with what I want to do with it. But again, that can get you in trouble. When you work for yourself, it's easy to sleep till 10 every day. It's easy to take 4-day vacations 4 weeks a year. 4 weeks a month. There's no saying you get out of anything what you put into it. So you have to be fair to yourself and be practical, but always appreciate it. One thing that's beautiful about America is the entrepreneurship, the chance of being your own person, owning your own joint, clothing store, surfboard store, whatever. But it's risky. What if I'm 45? I've been working for a manufacturing plant for 20 years. And one day my boss ticks me off, so I give him the finger. I lose my job. And I go home, I tell my wife, and she says, and you don't have a backup plan, do you, dummy? I think, oh, man. She's got a point. So I get on to Google, jobs near me. But a little light bulb comes up over my head. I think, you know what, damn it? I got a window of opportunity in my life open. I'm going to check in to open a clothing store. And the reason I'm having this little light bulb is because my grandparents had a clothing store, a children's clothing store. And when I was 8, they hired me, to bring boxes in, bust boxes, unload them. And then I was folding clothes and then hanging them. As I got a little older, they taught me the cash register. And then they taught me how to work the inventory software on the computer. And then they died when I was 15. So, my whole life, that's been deep down. I've thought, I was good at that. I enjoyed that. So, damn it, I'm going to make it happen. So let's, as a group, let's open up a clothing store in our mind. We've got to come up with a cute name, right? Got to find a place. Strip shopping center, mall, freestanding building. Am I going to rent? Am I going to buy? Let's say I decide a place in a strip shopping center. You ever notice in a strip shopping center, everybody got a sign over their business? You know how much some signs cost? $20,000 for a cheap one. I ain't opened my doors yet. And then I'm going to have to buy shelving, little platforms to put clothes on, maybe the security thing, that snack up. Price tags, invoices. Again, computer, cash register. I still haven't opened my doors. I better have good credit or a lot of money because I need inventory. I need crap to sell. I still ain't opened my doors. I need to advertise. I have to advertise on the radio, on television. Do I buy a board on my kid's high school baseball field? I remember the thrifty nickel. I still ain't opened my doors yet. I got to hire some kids. Kids. Do y'all know statistically how many businesses fail in year one? It's shocking. 9 out of 10. And of the 1 out of 10 that makes it into year 2, do you know statistically how many of those fail in year 2? 90%. So that first year with my clothing store, I probably worked 80 hours a week. Why? Because I couldn't afford payroll, or the punks that I hired ain't showing up. And then statistically, I'm on my keister after year 1. If not year 1, year 2. You think my credit's ruined? Probably. Think I've spent every nickel I saved my whole life, that I went without, sacrificed and scrimped and budgeted? Is my ego bruised, my psychology tainted, ruined? I'm not as confident of a person as I was. Now we got problems in my relationship. I'm hitting my kids. It's costly. But if you get a real estate license, you're going to get to enjoy entrepreneurship without the risk. Because when you go to work in a real estate office, you know who ain't paying for that damn office? You. You know who didn't pay for the desks? Hey, have any of y'all shopped for a desk lately? About $1,000, for a cheap one. You didn't have to pay for the filing cabinet. Anybody shop for a damn filing cabinet lately? You didn't have to buy a copy machine, the copier, the ink, the maintenance that goes with the copier. You ain't got to buy all the signs, and you ain't got all the houses out there or your inventory. You ain't got the phone bill every month, for God's sakes. Your landline. So, sometimes you don't take things seriously when you really don't have the proper perspective. I want you to run down there, page 119, those 3 bullets. I want you to highlight the 3rd bullet. As you would imagine, gang, I'm going to talk while you highlight. There is corruption in this area. There are employers who tell the IRS, I got 20 independent contractors working for me, but if an auditor were to go, they're going to find a damn clock-in machine because you're treating all 20 of them like employees. Telling them when to be at work, lunch, when they get out, personal day, sick days, vacation days. You give them quotas. You can't have your cake and eat it too, I think they say, right? So you'd be in trouble from the IRS. Now, let's say I'm the practitioner, not the company owner. And let's say I'm a school teacher and I do sideline hustle real estate. So on my taxes, end of year, I got 2 sources of income, my teaching income and a little bit of real estate income, because I turned a couple of properties over for some side money. Well, you can write this to the left of that bullet, right? 90%. 90%. I've heard this is on the exam. I would have to prove to the IRS that 90% of my real estate income, not all of my income, not my teacher income, just my real estate, has to be tied to production, not hours worked. When I say production, I mean units sold. 90% of my income has to be tied to production and not hours worked. That would validate to the IRS that I was a legitimate independent contractor. So, my father was in the business, owned his own company. That's a coincidence. We weren't, tied as a drum. I just coincidentally ended up in the business. But nevertheless, my father owned a company in the late 60s, 70s, 80s. And, like you young kids don't, when we were kids, you're bored. You get an old box that your parents had in the closet of old pictures. You could rifle through old vacations, old birthdays. Any of y'all got a box of pictures y'all rifle through every now and then? I had one person nod their head. You young people going to wake up and go, what did I look like 30 years ago? Because all your devices are in the dump. You're going to have no pictures. I better start printing some pictures out at the drugstore. You do good for you. But I was going through some pictures. I saw my dad's office having a Christmas party. They used to party in the 60s. They wore the green suits and the brown suits, and the silk shirts and the short ties that come up to about here. And they wore the lampshades at parties when they got drunk. But there was a device on a table. It looked like a briefcase, had a handle on it. It's about as big as a briefcase. I asked my dad, I said, what's that in that picture? He said, that was one of the first pagers, son. I was like, are you kidding me? It was you. It looked like a briefcase. But he said, you have no idea, son. Every little piece of technology was like making the day longer. Because he said, sir, son, in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, we spent 20 hours a week selling real estate and 20 to 30 hours a week going to get something or drop it off. Because they didn't have email, fax machines, scan. They didn't have nothing. You had to go to the title. You had to go to the homeowners. You had to go to the surveyors. You had to go to the other real estate company. Then you had to show properties and tote them around. Literally. He said, so yeah, the pager was a beautiful thing. Real estate assistant was a novel concept in our industry. Kind of came about around the 80s. So, let's say I'm the top producer at Blue Wall Real Estate, and I realize I got a ceiling on how much I can earn. It's called a 24-hour day. How can I bust through that ceiling and increase my income? I'm a little go-getter. Well, I hire me an assistant. Now I've got someone who can do data entry, return calls, return emails, do paperwork, make some flyers maybe for me, whatever. What does that do? Frees me up. I can put more signs in yard, tote people around, show more property. So the novel concept of an assistant in the real estate industry in the 80s allowed top producers to make a little more money. Turning the page. How does a broker get paid? There are customs, guys. Again, I don't mean to be redundant, but there can be no agreement in our industry as to how we get paid. The custom is we charge a % of the sales price. But, you've got real estate companies that charge a flat fee. I know an owner of a company here in Birmingham who does very well. He's a flat fee guy. They're like, we'll charge you $6,000. We don't care if it's $1 million or $2 million. We don't care if it's a $400,000. We charge flat fee. I have heard, I read a lot of publications. I've only practiced real estate in Alabama. I don't know. I read things like anybody. I've heard that there are attorneys in big cities, fancy attorneys that may have a reputation because they got a show on HGTV or something. But they charge by the hour. Like an attorney. You're a buyer and you want to buy a plot, every minute he got to spend with you, he's billing you. If he's on the MLS looking you up, and you're at home, he's billing you like an attorney. If I ask my CPA to email me something, there's a damn $75 charge on my bill. I mean, they charge you for picking the phone up to talk to you. So I do want you, we're in the middle of page 120. You see it says broker's compensation. In the middle of that page, paragraph, the first one, it's almost right in the middle. I want you to highlight the sentence. The amount of a broker's commission is negotiable in every case. I've heard people tell me, Mr. Yarbrough, I'm 70 years old. I've bought multiple homes. I've sold multiple. Well, here, let me do my imitation of a blue blood in Alabama. Mr. Yarbrough, my whole family's from Montgomery. I just recently had this conversation with a man. But I bought many homes, and they're all 6%. You don't have to play and suggest that they're negotiable. Now, you can go any real estate company, pull their filing cabinet out. You will find multiple commissions. Now, is the majority of the time it's going to be one rate or not? One that is customary in that town? Absolutely. But like gas, is most gas the same gallon? One station might be a penny more or a penny less, but they're about charging the same. Why? It's called competition. If I try to price too low to win a lot of business, I might make no money. So I'm chasing my tail. If I want to try to make some money and I price my gas high, now ain't nobody coming to me. So we all got to kind of try to stay around a sweet spot. That's the same way with real estate. We're all charged around that. But there's sometimes, if I take an expired listing, I'm going to try to get 7-8%. I'm going to try to get as much as I can. If I take a $800,000 listing, I might go to 5%. I might go work my way down to avoid losing that business. But again, the amount of a broker's commission is negotiable in every case. It's a bold, plain, simple statement they want you to know. The next paragraph, we talked about this last night. The broker's compensation, the first sentence of the next paragraph, will also be affected by the participation in the transaction of a broker from another firm who may be representing one of the parties. The whole purpose of MLS is to share information so that agents all have it, so that buyers can buy quicker and sellers can sell quicker. Always remember the MLS is for buyers and sellers, not for us. The next question, a commission is considered earned. I keep saying the wrong words, guys. The next paragraph, first sentence, a commission is considered earned when the work for which the broker was hired has been accomplished. And that ain't to sell the property. We've had this conversation. When I procure a ready, willing, and able buyer who steps forward and makes a full price unconditional offer, rubber stamp it, I've earned my money. Now, in theory, can we sue the seller for a commission if we feel like we have performed and earned and they refuse to sell? Yes. Guys that have been in the business 35 years in some shape or form, I have never been a party to a real estate company that I worked with suing a seller. Commercial real estate's all about numbers. Residential real estate's emotions. And people make emotional decisions, and we want to allow them to be able to make emotional decisions. So it's called cost of doing business. We'll let somebody change their mind on the list and go away. But you know what? We're going to be taking a damn exam, testing our knowledge, not of real life, of theory. So let's start talking about the bottom of the page. If I'm suing for a commission, I got to show three things in a court of law. And guys, it's not going to be hard for you to remember this. Why? Because they're fairly logical. Pretend you're the judge. I'd have to prove to the courts I had a real estate license at the time in question. Well, wouldn't you think so? What am I suing for? A real estate commission. So that's a very duh requirement. Up here, page 121, I got to show them the listing contract, Your Honor. Here's where they give me permission to sell. But you don't really think logically, commonsensically, why would I have to show the listing agreement to the court? It is, but you know, anytime you sue somebody, you got to sue them for an amount of money. And did they not promise to pay me something in the listing agreement? So this helps me validate what I'm suing you for. And then the third one, I would have to prove that I was the procuring cause. You may not have a firm grasp on what procuring cause is. You will after you read the next two paragraphs. While you're reading the second paragraph, the next to last sentence in that paragraph says, and I want you to highlight, a court may prevent the broker from receiving a commission if the broker knew the buyer was unable to perform. If that statement wasn't true, broke real estate brokers would pull homeless people off the streets and claim they was ready, willing, and able. You know what I mean? They'd be suing everybody. And the reason I asked you to highlight that is, from what I understand, there's a question on the exam that, in fact, I am suing for a commission and I can't prove the able part. How would I prove as a buyer that I was able? That I either had the ability to get mortgage financing or I had the purchase price in cash, one or the other. That's what I would have to prove to be able. So if I can't prove both, I'm not able. Anticipate that question. That would be a commission block if I'm suing for a commission. So at the bottom of page 121, sales associates compensation, we typically is a not a good word to use. The custom is that the salesperson receives a percentage of the percentage that the company gets. You've heard me use this verbiage, and I shouldn't have because you're still lay people. Splits, but you probably are knowledgeable enough to understand that. But yeah, this company, Mark, this company said if I go over there, they're going to give me 80-20. This company's going to give me a 70-30. This company's going to give me 65-35. Anytime you hear that, this would be the salesman portion. This is the company portion. This is the salesman portion. This is the company portion. Now, guys, there will be a time that you are shopping brokers. Okay. People come to me after they pass the course and they say, Mr. Yob, I don't know what to ask. I ain't never been in. Well, guess what? Everybody before they got a license has never done this. We all have healthy egos, and none of us want to be, we don't want to look like rookies. That's bubblegum psychology. We don't want to look like rookies. You carry that with you your whole life. You don't have to. Here's what you want to do. Once you pass the exam, you want to call a few brokers, and you could throw my name in there as an icebreaker. I don't get referral fees from brokers, but you can say, I just finished Mark's course. He suggested I give you a call to see if you're hiring salespeople. Oh, Mark, he's crazy. Just an icebreaker. And then say, are you hiring salespeople? You are. Can we drink a cup of coffee this week? Okay. Just be real informal. And when you show up, don't show up in your damn sweats. You're not interviewing for a job, guys. You're the interviewer, not the interviewee. But still, you want to be marketable. I see realtors wearing sweats to work, wearing shorts in the summer, and they sell real estate. Don't get me wrong. But I never understood why people don't take how they earn a money and feed their family as serious as they do a first date. Because when you're on the first date, you go extra on the ears. Maybe y'all hadn't reached that age yet, But I'm going to spend a little extra time on the ears. I'm going to do, you know what I mean. Everybody's got that extra shower, right? You know what the extra shower is. You pull out all the creams. That's the way you should do in your business, because it makes people fall in love with you, so to speak. But I think I'm going off on a damn rabbit trail. Here we go. You want to be informal. Don't think you're expected to know how to speak eloquently in the business. Are you hiring? Great. When can we drink a cup of coffee and talk about it? Boom, you're in the door. Now you're just going to sit down and have small talk. Look at the second paragraph. Some firms have adopted a 100% commission plan. Let's stop right there. I'll tell you the history. RE/MAX. RE/MAX came out in the 70s. My brain wants to say 1973. And RE/MAX was the first that introduced the 100% concept to the real estate industry. Here's what RE/MAX said. And the numbers I'm going to use, I'm just pulling out of my sleeve. Okay. I don't know what RE/MAX's numbers were then or now. We're starting to put the heat on because of the winter, so my back's itching, Oh, God, that just started another one. Ooh, okay. RE/MAX would come set up in town. Here's RE/MAX. Let me just give you an example. Again, the numbers are just random. I'm making up. You want to come work at RE/MAX? We're going to charge you $2,000 a month rent for your desk. You'd get a legitimate desk, okay? $2,000, and you got to pay that whether you sell real estate or not. Just like you rent your apartment. You got to pay $2,000, but you get 100% of the commission. I never get a penny from anything you do. Now, as y'all would imagine, you don't have to be good at math, but on the production scale, there's a point where that makes sense. Do y'all understand that? So I used to go to annual conventions. I believe in going to your industry's annual convention. It's a great place to see the sexy trainers, the Hollywood trainers, and get really good trendy information. You get to meet practitioners from around the country, hear how they do, and drink with them, make fun, get on the email, and get referrals, But I remember I was in San Antonio at a realtor convention. The classes were over, and I'm at a hot top drinking cocktails with three gals. And they were all older than me. And one of the gals happened to be a real estate commissioner in the state of Kentucky. And she owned her own real estate company. Most real estate commissioners are in the biz, they practice. So she owned her own real estate company. So I'm really just listening to the girls talk. And I don't remember this conversation specifically, but I garnered, based on what was being said, that she salaried her salespeople. I said, stop. Are you telling me you don't pay your people on a split? You pay them a salary. She said, I do. I said, you're a unicorn. She said, I do know that. The only one I've ever met in my 35 years that salaried salespeople. I said, do any of your people produce at an amount where they would make more than they make with you at a company with a traditional split? She said, half of them are. And they still stay? She said, they've been with me for 10 years. I said, why? She said, that check every Friday. Guys, some people psychologically, no matter how talented they are. There's a female, Angie, that I grew up with. She would be a billionaire selling real estate. She's just the cutest, most trustworthy. I mean, I know good salesman, and she is, but she needs a check every Friday. If she is not going to leave her job, she needs a check every Friday. For some reason, people can't get over that psychology. So, yeah, I'm just trying to tell you there are options, alternatives to how people get paid. So, RE/MAX was Satan. From talking to old timers, because RE/MAX would come into a town, all the top producers and all the existing companies would leave and go to RE/MAX, and all the companies were panicking. You know what? 2 out of 10 agents in every office as a ratio help the office pay the bills. 8 out of 10 agents in every office close less than 4 deals a year. And that's not putting them down and saying they're crappy salespeople. The independent contractor status lends to part-timers, fair or unfair. So there are a lot of people in our business who are like me. They retire as a postman at 55. They try sitting in around the house for a couple of years till it drives them up the wall. Then they go get a license, honest to God, just so they can get the hell out of the house on Saturday when their old lady's driving them up the wall. And that is not who the company depends on. So the company was losing their, bell cows. They were losing their bell cows. So what do you think the traditional companies had to do to avoid losing their bell cows at that time in the 70s? Boom. They had to offer 100% plan as an alternative to what they would prefer you take to keep losing their bell cows. And then in the 90s, the early 90s, guess what RE/MAX started offering as an alternative to the 100%? Splits. So right now, basically, guys, real estate companies are like convenience stores. They all sell the same crap. There's almost no difference. Sometimes you'll see a difference. Like one convenience store I like, the Shell, they don't got the turtles. The little 4 turtles in the package, like a candy bar. And then the Chevron does got the turtles, but the difference is imperceptible. What I want to tell you before we move on, and this is more business than exam, is don't make your decision on what company you go to solely based on split. Guys, I have been in real estate companies, and you swear you got to go outside and look at the sign because you think you walked into a funeral parlor. Just the lights are dim and it's kind of cold and they're playing true elevator music and nobody makes eye contact. They might be offering me 80-20. But then I go drink a cup of coffee with a broker. I walk in, there's a hustle, there's a bustle, people crossing in front. There's smoke coming off the damn copy machine. There's a palpable sense of drive and energy and people making eye contact with you, smiling, winking, If that's a 65-35, I'm going to work there instead of the 80-20 because 65% of something better than 80% of nothing every damn day of the week. So just keep that in mind. Do not use the dollar splits as your sole determining factor why you choose one company over another. First, highlight the first sentence at the bottom of 121. I told you at least 3 questions they're going to want you to know. So they talk about it throughout the course. No matter how your compensation is structured, as a rule, only your broker can pay you. And I think there's one more time we're going to ask you to highlight it because they want you to know that, by gosh. But, regardless, when you go to work with a company, typically they'll say, okay, you start out here with a split. And then, kind of like the Price is Right, you got the yodely, the guy yodeling up the hill. You got a production scale. So as your production hits plateaus, your split will increase. And as it hits another plateau, your split will increase. Then you hit another plateau. You get where I'm coming from. Turning the page. On page 122, I want you to include the middle in your studying. We're not going to go over it as a group. We have gone over some similar questions. So if adding and subtracting and dividing is in your wheelhouse, spend a little time on that because they're going to show you 4 different ways. How to determine how much each broker made in each scenario. Guys, page 123 has to do with what happened to our industry 20 years ago. It's not important. It's barely interesting. I will tell you this. Some sales training you want to take once you get into business is how to protect your commission. Because people are going to try, Mark, will you do it for 5.5? Will you do it for 5? Will you do it for 4.5? Most salesmen couldn't sell, most real estate salesmen, and I'm talking about my people, and I'm allowed to talk about my people, but they couldn't sell water to a man on fire. They have no backbone. Mark, would you take, yes, I'll take, what were you going to say? I'll take it, whatever you was going to say. No, look at the bottom of the page 122. There's a bulleted list of, if you wanted to be articulate, of the services you offer during a listing. I help the seller prepare the property for sale. I perform a comparative market analysis to assist the seller. I assist with marketing the property. I locate and screen. You can read. So if somebody ever says, Mark, will you take less than 6? I'll say, which of these 7 bullets do you want me, which of 3 of these 7 bullets do you want me to eliminate? Because if you want to reduce what I'm going to get paid, I'm going to reduce what the hell I'm doing for you. I got no problem, too, telling someone, if I can't protect my price, how in the hell you think I'm going to protect your price? So let's quit playing games and keep going. On page 124, middle of the page, antitrust laws. Maybe somebody reads the news in here. What company right now is under the microscope for antitrust laws, being sued by the federal government in 12 other states? Alphabet Inc. Anybody know who Alphabet Inc. is? The umbrella company for Google. So let's talk about, guys, the turn of the century, and I'm not talking about 20 years ago turn, I'm talking about 120 years ago. Our major industries were monopolized. The banking, the oil, shipping, the railroad, the money. You had J.P. Getty and the money. It was Carnegie with Standard Oil. No, Rockefeller was Standard Oil. Carnegie was steel. I forget all that. Vanderbilt was the railroads and shipping. Nevertheless, the problem with a monopoly, okay, if you own rental properties right now, you probably have this problem. I've got sub-account under my primary account. I may have an empty rental property with a $14 bill, but they'll cut my damn power off at my house by accident. So occasionally I got to call Alabama Power and raise hell. You know what? All it does is make me feel better because I can't say what I want to say. I'm taking my business elsewhere. That's what I can't say. And that's the problem with a monopoly. You can't take your business elsewhere. So if I ship something by rail from New York to California 120 years ago, and it got in there in 50 different pieces in 3 months too late, all I can do is make myself feel better. I ain't going to be able to take my business elsewhere. So we all know the problems of a monopoly. So the Sherman Antitrust Act broke up the existing monopolies. AT&T was an existing monopoly, and that's when we got the South Central Bell and the Southwest Bell. All the bells came about because AT&T was broke up. And laws were set in place to prevent the formation of antitrust. Y'all may can remember 20 years ago, Bill Gates and Microsoft being sued for antitrust because he would not allow sellers of his computers to use another operating service. He had a tie-in with Windows. And you can't have a tie-in agreement. Like look at page 125, you see tie-in agreements. Nevertheless, let's talk about these. See, guys, if you ever hear, and it's usually a young person, talk about the evils of the capitalistic economy, just don't listen to another damn word they have to say. It is the best in the history of man. It has never elevated men to the heights it has. The beauty of it is me and you are in charge, not the government. Me and you are in charge. Would the DMV exist anywhere in the private world? Of course not. If a restaurant serves crappy food and it's not clean and they don't smile, me and you stop going so it dies on the vine. We demand quality. We make the market meet our demands. That's the beauty of our economy. But what is a requirement for that to work? Healthy competition. Everybody has to try to beat the other guy to get my business. I got to have a cleaner restaurant, a bigger burger, more fries, whatever. So you know how crooks are good. They try to find loopholes. They try to find gray areas. They try to skirt around the rules. So look at price fixing. What if Mickey D's and McDonald's, Mickey D's and Burger King had a secret meeting? And they said, listen, will you quit coming up with a new damn burger every other month? And I'll quit doing the same thing. Let's charge the same thing for our burgers. That way, we ain't got to spend $25 million on a marketing campaign and all this sexy rock and roll music and the kids and the colors to convince people to use it. If we just charge the same thing, there's no incentive for them to go there. If they're just going to go to whichever one's closest. What does that do? That takes the power away from me and you. Price fixing benefits them. Group boycott. You know, maybe the big hamburger boys all have a secret meeting, McDonald's, Burger King, Wendy's, and Hardee's. And they call their meat supplier on a conference call. Hey, meat supplier, how you doing? Us four, we sitting around smoking cigars talking about you. We hadn't done nothing to make you mad, have we? You still like our meat? We do, but we want you to stop selling meat to anybody else that makes hamburgers if you want to continue doing business with us. Consider it done. You know, they want their business. So what is the four big boys trying to do? Eliminate competition, you know. Allocation of customers and markets. Home Depot and Lowe's could split up every city and say, we're going to take the south side of every city. You're going to take the north side of every city. Maybe I live on the north side of the city, but I prefer Lowe's, but I'm not going to drive 45 minutes to Lowe's. So I deal with Home Depot, even though I prefer Lowe's. That takes the power away from the consumer. Allocation of markets, group boycott, price fixing. Now, here's where I've heard there's a question on there, and they're going to try to test you because you just heard allocation. So let's say Mark owns a real estate company, and I have 4 agents. I allocate Allison the south side of town. I allocate Cindy the north side of town. I allocate Matthew the west side of town, and I allocate Jonah the east side of town. Is that a antitrust violation? No. Competitors are the key word for antitrust violations. What am I doing? Allocating market to reps internally. That's legit. That's not affecting the customer. Allocation of market. So you're always going to be looking for a collusion amongst competitors. Now, I'm hearing this is on there. More often than not, it is the government who pursues companies for antitrust laws, just like what's going on right now with Google. But what if I'm a contractor and, you know, I do anything. I fix whatever. And I'm all over town. I work Metro Birmingham. Hell, I may be in Warrior. Now I'm in Colburn. Now I'm in Clanton. I'm everywhere. So I can't get married to a hardware store. I use whichever one's closest. Marvin's, Aces, Lowe's, Home Depot. So after a couple of years, I start noticing all the primary tools are priced the same at all four of the stores: Marvin's, Aces, Lowe's, Hardware's. And what am I smelling? Price fixing. If an individual, which has got to be rare, and I'm not an attorney, I only know what I've been told to tell you to get questions right. If I'm an individual and I think some antitrust has been going on, come down to the penalties on page 125 and highlight the next to last sentence. It begins, an individual who has suffered a loss because of an antitrust violation may sue for trouble, which is triple. So if I prove damages, I can sue for 3 times that amount. See, that's the problem with proving antitrust. How can you really prove damages? And that's what you have to prove in civil court. How can I show I've been damaged X thousands of dollars? So it's kind of like the government making me and you think they're protecting us when they're really not, you know? At the bottom of page 125, before we continue, we're almost at break. Let's talk about this, then we'll take our first break. National Association of Realtors. A lot of people mistakenly think that by getting a real estate license, it's going to make you a realtor. It's not. You have to pay annual dues to local, state, and national chapters to be a realtor. If you go to work with a realtor company, you're not going to have a choice. You've got to be a realtor. More than likely, if you're serious about making a living in the real estate business, you're going to be a realtor. I'm not exactly a realtor shill. I'm not the biggest fan. I'm not an enemy of them, but I'm just saying realistically, most companies are members of the realtor organization because of MLS tie-in. Regardless, what I'm trying to say to you is there's certainly laws that govern what we can and can't do. We're going to cover those in a week. But you know, there's sometimes you can do something that was horribly unethical, but not against the law. So the realtors try to promote their members to the public. Sometimes you'll see a commercial on TV. Not only are our professionals governed by the law, they are also governed by a stringent code of ethics. So if you'll turn the page, code of ethics in the middle of the page is going to be a part of your realtor training. Right when you get in the business, you're going to have some code of ethic training. Like you can't call on a sign. You can't cross signs. Don't write this down. This is an example. If there's a sign in the yard, I can't go knock on the door and tell them their current listing agent's doing a crappy job. Why don't you do? You ever heard the old attorneys commercials, the disclaimer at the end? This commercial is not suggesting that the services of this person are better than any other attorney, you know, blah, blah, blah. So you can't actively call on an active listing, you know, and try to steal it, so to speak. That's an example of an ethic. And right there, you see at the top of page 126, there are areas of specialization in real estate. So there'll probably be a professional association that is within your area of specialization that you can become a member of, and it would indicate to the public you've gone above and beyond the call of duty, acquiring a higher level of knowledge in your area of specialization. Break time. So I got 7:01. We're going to break until 7:15. You've had a long day at work, some of you, so this will give you a shot at rest, walking around. Thank you. I did notice. Oh my gosh, I'm glad I didn't go on for 30 minutes. Okay, you can hear me now, right? Right? Okay, thank you. Here we go. Again, purpose of MLS. Always remember this. The premise of MLS is to share data. Because the purpose of MLS is so that buyers can find homes quicker and easier, sellers can sell quicker and easier. The fact that it's beneficial to us is coincidental. It's not the point of MLS. So if I'm opening up a brand new real estate company, I have no listings, and that means I'm dead in the water like a boat with the engine failed. Because my phone is not going to ring. Signs in yards make phone ring, and ads in the paper used to be what make phone rings. So what's the newspaper of the modern day? The internet, the MLS, ads on your website of your listings and pictures, so that when someone's searching, if you've got a property that fits their search, then you'll populate in the results. And that's what we all want as businesses. So if you'll look right there, so where it says Internet Data Exchange Policy, the IDX, it's in bold print. I don't know if you need to highlight anything or write anything. I'm just telling you. I think there could be some information on the state exam. But so when I open my brand new real estate company and I set up my website, I am, as an MLS member, allowed to take listings from other companies off the MLS website and put them in mine. Now, I cannot deceive the public and suggest to the public that they're my listings. With them will be the MLS number and who the company's listed by. But why am I doing this? So I can show up in search results, right? SEO, if you know anything about search engine optimization. But some companies, they don't want their listings to be shared by anybody. So if you'll notice, in that paragraph, there is a italicized, a blanket opt-out provision. I do want you to highlight that. A blanket opt-out provision says there. This provision provides that those MLS participants interested in keeping their listings from competitors' websites cannot then display other real estate brokers' listings. Now, believe it or not, this is important on your state exam, but some sellers don't want you to let anybody know they're selling. They'll tell you, don't put it in the MLS. Don't put a sign in my yard. They're either in a life predicament where they don't want, I don't know why they don't want anybody to know or particular people to know. Maybe they got a mat on with everybody in their neighborhood, so they don't want anybody in their neighborhood to know they're selling. I don't know. But sellers have the right to request and remain anonymous. So again, we talked about technology evolving and making the real estate industry better. The smartphone was certainly a step in that direction. We can sit here as a group and talk about things that have changed the world. Electricity, the wheel. But isn't it crazy that this device has changed the world radically and faster than any significant invention in the history of time? It's amazing. What the smartphone has provided the industry, you can't imagine. Can't imagine. Let's turn the page. Email and texting. Oh my God. Guys, we used to have, every realtor, monthly, they printed the MLS book. So every realtor always had an MLS book in their car. And that's what they used when showing properties. They would flip, see the property address, and a lot of times we had map books, where every address was in alphabetical order. So if I was, going to show property in Alabaster on Aberdeen Way, I would just, in the A's in the map book, I would find Aberdeen Way, and it would give me the directions. But my gosh, when we got the internet in 1995 as a country, it radically changed. It took a while. It took about 5 years because everything was so slow. Some of y'all were too young to remember, but everything was incredibly slow. I tell y'all a story. I was seeing this girl This was around the year 2000. And she got one of the first digital cameras. And it looked like an old Polaroid. Y'all remember the old Polaroids that would pop up, you know? It looked like an old Polaroid. It was big, and it took 4 pictures. That's it, 4 pictures. And you had to put a floppy disk in it. It was big enough for a floppy disk to go in it. You fed a floppy, you could put up to 4. Then, you would take the floppy out, put it in the computer, and man, it would take like 8 hours to upload those 4 pictures. I mean, it was ridiculous. Social media, when I came into business, there was an unspoken rule that when I took a listing, my broker would pay for my first Sunday ad in the paper, and if you put ads in the paper, you could put a 2x2, a 4x4. A 2x2 is just a listing, 3-bedroom Tarrant, 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath. A little 4x4, you could have a little bit of extra information, but they cost. So, the company would pay for the first ad. The salesperson was responsible for every other ad throughout the life of the listing. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have websites. We didn't have email. We didn't have texting. So you had to advertise. If not, all that was selling your property was a sign. And you remember the wire rack magazines you would see in convenience stores, and grocery stores, with real estate in them, so you would put an ad in the paper and then maybe put an ad in the real estate book, depending on how much money you was going to make, depending upon how much advertising you did. But now you guys got social media. You can get wonderful exposure free of charge. Facebook now owns Instagram, so you get to double dip whenever you do some advertising. I do paid Facebook advertising, which again, you double dip Instagram, Facebook, and I spend about $1,000 a month. And we do heavy. Do y'all see a lot of my stuff come up on your newsfeed? I'm heavy on the social media, and I spend about $1,000. So y'all probably wouldn't need to be as heavy as I am. Point is if you're spending $500 a month on advertising, as far as the cost of doing business, you're making out. You're doing well, especially compared to our past. Page 129, electronic contracting. Again, we're just talking, guys. You hadn't highlighted or nothing, or maybe you know. I have gone through this transitional stage. We're kind of out of it. Everybody's doing electronic contracts. But, 10 years ago, the older generation, me and people older than me, were still manually handwriting contracts and faxing them. And then you had half of the real estate population, the youngsters, they were doing e-contracts. But, sometimes there's just a resist to change. And the older folks have realized that electronic contracting is actually ridiculously easy and so much better than manual. Because, on a manual contract, I would, with a pen, fill in the blanks. I'll offer you this much. I want you to convey to me a general warranty deed. I want to close on September 29th. I'd like for you to leave your washer, dryer, refrigerator, and stove, blah, blah, blah. And you submit your offer. And if the seller wants to make a counter offer, maybe they're asking $240 and you've asked $218. So they would cross out your $218, put their initials where they crossed out, and write $230. Whatever they wanted to counter. And then if they sent your counter back, you're like, I ain't paying $230. So you'd cross out their $230 and write your initials. And then above where they wrote $230, you might write $225, because it's just going back and forth. So as you would imagine, a manual contract, man, it would get to the point sometimes where there was heavy negotiations where people were writing down the side and turning it upside down and writing it and turning it over and writing it. It was just very sloppy. So the electronic contracts are really just a fancy copy paste function. I have the hard contract. I go to a field and I fill in the fields, and then I shoot it to the listing agent, and then the listing agent and the seller, they review it. If they want to counter the asking price, instead of manually crossing it out and initialing and writing over that what they want to counter, you just go into a box and you write the counter price, $230, and you drag it and you drop it over what they initially, So you're still doing the same thing. It's just typed and it's clean. And then the official one, the final one, is clean as a whistle. Now we're on page 130, and now we got some questions on the exam. Okay. On page 130, we got some notes to take. Now, guys, you know what salespeople do? Salespeople have to prospect. They have to cold call. They have to prospect. They have to call. A lot of salespeople used to do a lot of telemarketing. Some of y'all aren't coming from landline days, but back in landline days, you'd get 10 calls a night. You'd get a call from the heat and air company. We got a free checkup with the summer coming up, Mr. Yarber. We can come give you a free checkup. They're just trying to get their foot in the door. But you might have a plumber calling you, Blockbuster Video with a special calling you. It was like junk mail. Your phone was like junk mail at night. So they came up with the do not call list. This is at the very top in 2003. They almost came up with the federal do not call list too late because we were starting to abandon landlines and go to cell phones. But yeah, I would every year, every January, I'd go to the FTC's website and I would put in my numbers that I want protected. Now in the modern day, they got so much scamming and they got the technology. They know how to get around and not be sourced. You can't tell who it was. So it's hard to catch them. But I think what I do minimizes my calls. It's not going to eliminate them. But there's three things you're going to need to know. You're going to have to know one of these three things. If I do ongoing telemarketing, then I would have to purchase the list of the people on the do not call list and run them through my database to cancel them out of my database because I don't want to get in trouble. So one of the things you may want to know is what is the source of the list? The FTC, the Federal Trade Commission. It's right there in that paragraph. The Federal Trade Commission, y'all, is a government organization that's meant to be a consumer advocacy group. So if you're pissed off at somebody in the business world and you think they have violated some laws, you can call the Federal Trade Commission and file a complaint. They want you to update your list every 31 days. Or basically, what do they say? Monthly. If you're doing ongoing telemarketing, they want you to purchase your list from the FTC, and they want you to update your list monthly. And then every email, I'm sorry, oops, I'm on the wrong thing. 18 month. This is what I want you to do. Just write 18-month rule. See, what if I got a Capital One card and I'm paid up? I got a zero balance, but they make mistakes. I take my old lady out to a nice restaurant and I got some friends with me and they decline my card and embarrass me. I call them up and cuss them out. Next week, they embarrass me again with some friends. They decline my card. So I call Capital One. I say, listen, I'm done with y'all. I'm cutting them up. I got a zero balance. Well, Capital One can continue to telemarket me if they want to for 18 months from the most recent activity. So anytime you end a business relationship, they can continue telemarketing you for 18 months from the most recent activity. So I call it the 18-month rule. So you're going to need to know one of these three. I don't know which one. But guys, right here, 3 lines down, look at the top paragraph where it says in 2003, the federal do not call. Come to the 4th line where it says the National Do Not Call Registry, which is managed by the Federal Trade Commission. Highlight that. And to the left, write a little 1 because you need to know 3 things. That's the first one. Come down to the 2nd paragraph and highlight the first sentence where it says telemarketers and sellers are required to search the registry at least once every 31 days. That's the 2nd rule that I gave you. And then if you'll come down just 2 more lines, you see the 18 months? Okay, circle it because that's rule number 3. All right, now come down. Okay, from the top of the page, I want you to come down to the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th paragraph. From the top of the page, 5th paragraph. And within that paragraph, highlight right in the middle, highlight FCC prohibit most unsolicited fax advertisements. Right in the middle of the paragraph, FCC prohibit most unsolicited fax advertisements. In fact, they don't prohibit them. They've criminalized them. They're illegal. Huh? Do you have a fax machine? What do you have a fax machine? Wow, sure, yeah. You still receive some. Yeah, hey, you young people, up until about 2000, I think it was about 2010, that your landline bill was like your cell phone. You could just get it unlimited. But prior to 2010, you paid by the minute. And that's when you had MCI and all these AT&T calling you. We'll give you $50 if you switch. I was switching every damn day. I swear to God. But, back in the day, you call your grandmother, you'd be on the phone 2 minutes. Your mama like, get off the damn phone, because they're charging you for every minute. And sometimes you would get a long fax and you paid for it because it was a long distance fax. So that's why they criminalized them, because you're paying for them. So now in the next paragraph, highlight the CAN-SPAM Act, because now we're going to switch. We're going to talk about the CAN-SPAM Act. A lot of people mistakenly think that spamming is illegal. It is not. It is just the electronic version of junk mail. But, bad people make things hard for good people. There are people who abuse crap. So there's some rules. Only 2 rules right here. Okay. Every email has to have an easily readable opt-out, sometimes called unsubscribe option. Every email has to have an easily findable opt-out or unsubscribe option. And then you have 10 days to get the opt-out out of your database. Because what if I email you on Tuesday, you opt out on Wednesday, and my servers are still churning, and they accidentally send you another email on Friday? The government's going to give me a break. That's only 3 days. They're going to give me 10 days to get the opt-out out. Now that I have submitted complaints to the FTC, and I never even heard from them back. So it's really just the government trying to fake you out. Yeah, we're trying to help you and protect you. They ain't doing nothing. So we're at our 15 minutes, gang. All right, I'm going to show y'all something on question 14. I want 14 to be a challenge for you. I'm not going to tell you how to do it, but look at 14 and then look up at the board. I'm going to give you an example that will help your mind understand why they're asking the way they're asking what they're asking. So here goes. Watch this. What if, y'all, I hire an attorney for a situation? And in my appointment with the attorney, I said, well, how much you going to charge me, Mr. Attorney? He says, well, Mark, the first hour through the 5th hour, I charge $3.50 an hour. Okay. So in other words, if he only worked for me for 3 hours, I would owe him $1,050. Y'all see that? So he said, first through the 5th hour, Mark, I work for $3.50 an hour. 6th through the 10th hour, I only charge $2.50 an hour. And then from the 11th hour up, they only charge $150 an hour after that. So let's say that this attorney logged 14 hours. Well, $3.50 times 5, y'all, is $17.50. 6 through 10 is 5. And 5 times 250 is 1250. And then we had the 11th, 12th, 13th, and 14th. That's 4 hours times 150. That's 600. So when I get my bill, I'm going to get a bill for 0, 0K on 1, 16K on 1. I'm going to get a bill for $3,600. Do y'all understand that? If you understand that, then you should understand question 14. But if you're competitive, everybody doesn't understand 14. So I just gave you a clue. So if you're competitive, you may want to try and see if you can get it. But our 15 minutes is going to begin now, and I got 7:38. You may begin. At this point, you almost want to take each question like a little project. If there are any words in a particular question, isolate them, and then later look up the definitions. But you can break each question down. So we're going to take a break. I got 7:53. We're going to break until 7:05, 8:05. Gives you a 12-minute break. Okay, I'm back. Some of you, either virtual or satellite students, let me know if I'm back up with you. Just somebody say, yes, you're back. And then I can move on. All right, great. Here we go. On chapters 10, page 159, we're going to talk about different types of listing agreements and how they can go away. We're going to talk about your listing presentation and info needed for that. Talk about the responsibilities of the people in a listing agreement. Then we'll talk about some different types of agreements. Let's turn the page. In my time, since I have come into business, I am a person of an age where I came into the business at a transitional time. I was pre-technology and during technology and post-technology. And up until 1996, gang, and I don't expect you to remember the significance of that. We just talked about it last night. 1996 was when buyers could first be represented as clients. So prior to that, buyers were customers. And we did not have exclusive arrangements with customers. And we all, as business people, want exclusivity, just like we want them in our relationships with others. You know, back in the day, you could show property for 6 weeks, show multiple homes to a couple. First of all, guys, in real life, you're not going to spend 6 damn weeks showing people properties. We're going to show you how to get them to pull the damn trigger. But yeah, let's just say I've been showing them 6 weeks. I've been showing them property so much the kids now call me Uncle Mark whenever we get together. But I call my buyer and I say, listen, I'm taking my family to the beach for 4 days. I'll be back. I come back, I call them. I say, you want to go look at some properties? I'm back. You know, I got a little sunburn. You know, we had some fun. And they say, oh, Mark, while you were gone, we went in an open house. My buyers fell in love with it. We made an offer with the open house agent. Yes, the rug got pulled out from under me. I get no compensation for all that time and energy expended. In fact, that was common. We understood when we started working with buyers that was going to happen. And the reason is because realtors aren't good at explaining anything. All you have to do is explain to someone the need for loyalty. I mean, I would tell a buyer, you can't expect me to wake up in the morning thinking of you as a priority unless I understand that you're going to be loyal to me. I've had that conversation many times. But here we go. Mid-90s, things changed. Now we got exclusivity. So right here in the agreements, there are 4 types of listing agreements. Again, you'll hear me naturally put things into lists because the brain learns better from lists. So let's put a little 1 out beside exclusive right to sell and circle it. That's the first of the 4 that we're going to talk about. The exclusive right to sell. Y'all know how I like to teach with totem poles, and this is at the top of the totem pole as far as desirability. This is the one you want. And interestingly enough, more than likely, it's the only one of the 4 that we're about to discuss that your broker is going to allow you to take. Okay. And what I'm about to tell you is very simple. You should have no problems remembering this, understanding it. The things I want you to know on the exam about an exclusive right to sell, real simple. It has to begin and end. It can't be open. Okay. It's got to begin and end. Like your relationship with your doctor is wide damn open. You know, you don't have a 6-month arrangement with your doctor. Not that a listing agreement has to have a beginning and an ending. And you cannot have automatic renewal clauses. You know, I couldn't have a clause in the listing that says, if I haven't helped you sell your home by the time this agreement ends, this listing agreement will renew for an additional 60 days. You could not have that. It's got to end. Now, could you go back and negotiate a new listing agreement with the owners? Sure. Sometimes you'll see a sign up in the yard for many months, and then it'll be gone for a week, and then the same damn sign will come up. If the property sells during the beginning and end, during the listing period, the listing company gets a commission. It's really that simple. Beginning, ending, no automatic renewal clauses. If the property sells during the listing period, then the listing company gets a commission, no questions asked. And I don't care if the owner's mama buys the property. Okay? Because it says right there, italics, regardless of who sells the property. The seller could call you up on Monday. Mark, I was out this weekend at the flea markets handing out flyers on my home, and I'll be down if I didn't find a buyer. I'll be like, well, thanks for doing my work, but I'll see you at the closing because I'm getting a commission. Number 2, bottom of the page, exclusive agency listing. So look at here. The only difference between those two is the right to sell. The words "the right to sell" is not on there. So do me a favor, though, in the second sentence, highlight the italicized portion. In this one, it's got to have a beginning and an ending. All listings, regardless of the type, have to have a beginning and ending and can have an automatic renewal. Let's just get that down. But what I just asked you to highlight says the seller retains the right to sell the property without the obligation to pay the broker. What if I live in a small town? I'm the realtor. Miss Johnson calls me and she says, Mark, how is you and your family? And I say, they're fine, Miss Johnson. How's you and yours? She said, they're good. She said, you know, Mark, I've retired from teaching 2 years ago. She was my teacher in biology 20 years ago. She said, you know, I retired from teaching 2 years ago. And, you know, I've had bad sinuses my whole life. And my sister's been living out there in Scottsdale for a few years with her husband. And they say that dry air out there is perfect for people with the condition I got. So I'm going to move out there. Can you help me sell my house? I said, Miss Johnson, that's what I do. So I get in the car and I go out there and we have some small talk and eat some Entenmann's and drink some coffee and do some paperwork. And then for the next 2 or 3 months, you know, I put a sign in the yard. I create some flyers and I'm out in the town shaking the trees, handing flyers out, trying to find somebody who wants to buy Miss Johnson's house. But after 2 months, Miss Johnson calls me and she says, how are you doing, Mark? I said, I'm fine. She says, you know, Mark, I was talking to my son. You know, my son owns the hardware store in town. And he said, Mama, what if you get out there to Arizona and you don't like it? And that made me swallow my tongue. I thought, my gosh, what if I do get out there and I don't like it? So I'm selling my property to my boy, and he's going to use it as a rental property. And that way, Mark, if I do get out there and decide to come home, I got my house. But thank you so much for all you've been doing. What the hell did she just do? Seller retains the right to sell the property without the obligation to pay the broker. Do you see in that instance, that's just what she just did? She don't own it. Let me give you another practical example of how you could use this list. Guys, not all realtors call them for sale by owners. It's your option too. But you know what? For sale by owners are called low fruit. You know, I mean, it's easy to pick. You want to know who wants to sell their house? That sign in their yard is a good indication. So you can go up knock on the door and go into your why you should list with me instead of continuing to try to do this by yourself spiel. So I do a good job. And I walk into the man says, you want to continue this conversation in the living room, Mr. Yarber? And I say, yeah. We go in the living room. We finish talking, doing the paperwork. And right as his hand is going to the bottom of that agreement to put his John Hancock, he says, wait a minute, Mr. Yarber. He said, you know, the 3 months I've been trying to do this myself unsuccessfully, I have showed it to 8 different families. If after we consummate our agreement here tonight, I'm going to be upset. If one of them 8 people step up and want to buy my house, I'm going to feel like I don't owe you a commission. Do y'all understand this man's logic? Yeah. I understand it, plain and simple. I say, that's fair, sir. That's very fair. Do you got those 8 families written down somewhere? He says, I got them written down on a scrap envelope in the junk drawer in the kitchen. Hang on. He goes and gets it, and I make them 8 names a part of the agreement. And we're going to, if we want to be all nerdish, we're going to call these exclusions. Does that make sense to y'all? And do you see how that's a practical application of this exclusive agency listing? I'm not going to be negating any effort the man put in prior to meeting me. So at the top of page 161, you see open listing. And you know what? Open listings are gross, kind of like open relationships. There's a few freaks that enjoy the openness, but most of us don't. It's sticky. But open listings, guys, let me give you an example. Again, I called on for sale by owners. It's a legitimate source of business. I highly recommend you do. BizBoat. So open listing. Let's say I for sale by owner, I stop, pull over. Then I walk up and I start my "you should list with me" spiel. And after I get through my spiel, the man says, Mr. Yarber, timing is everything. And you might be in the right place at the right time. I've had that sign up in the yard 4 months. I am tired of being asked questions I don't know the answer to. I'm tired of scrubbing the house from top to bottom for somebody that says they're going to come on Saturday and they don't. And I've already canceled my Saturday. And I got to get out from under this. Gee whiz. You want to come in the living room, finish this conversation? So I said, yeah. So we go in the living room and the man says, before you get to talking, Mr. Yarber, let me tell you something. He says, my ex-wife is my best friend. It's very strange. We couldn't get along as husband and wife, but we thick as thieves as friends. And, bonus every now and then. He says, but she used to be a real estate agent in Florida. And she told me that there is such a thing as an open listing. Is she correct? I said, there is such a thing. He says, if I remember correctly, she told me that in an open listing, you could put a sign up in my yard. But the only instance, Mr. Yarber, she says, that I owe you a commission is if you're the one that physically brings me an offer and I sign. That if anybody else in the world other than you during this open listing period of time brings me an offer and I accept it, I don't owe you a commission. Is she right? I say, she's right on the money. That's exactly what an open listing is. He says, well, I'd be willing to do that with you. I'm deflated. That's not what I was aiming for. But I think, they say something's better than nothing, right? So I think, well, maybe this is a foot in the door. Maybe it'll. So I do. I put a sign up. We do an open listing. 1 month later, he's in church, waiting on preaching to get started, talking to Regina in the pew behind him. He says, I cannot sell my house to save my life. I met this man about a month ago. I thought my problems were over. He seemed like he knew what he was talking about, but I ain't seen him since he walked off my porch. He ain't called me. She said, well, sometimes you get what you pay for. She said, you need a listing, a traditional one with a hot dog. And my friend Nancy is the top producer down there at Green Grass Real Estate. I say, have you got her number? And we exchange. I get her number and I call Nancy and I say, listen, Regina has recommended you. Will you meet me at Quincy's when I get out of church? So we meet in the back booth at Quincy's, and I sign an exclusive right to sell for 180 days with Nancy. 3 days later, I call him up. I say, hey, you remember me? He says, barely. Why are you calling me? I say, I'm just holding a full price unconditional offer on your home. He says, why are you still on the damn phone? So I get in the car and I drive over there, and in the living room, he puts his autograph down there at the bottom of the contract. Stop and think about it. This man has painted himself in a corner. He now owes me a commission, right? Because I physically gave. He also owes Nancy one. Because it says regardless of who sells the property. But see, what I want you to do, guys, even though they make it real life in the little scenarios, at all times, damn it, you have to have this mindset. I'm a student and they're testing what I learned that is theory, okay? At all times. Don't get caught up in the real life. Because in not one question, they just challenged your knowledge of the 4 types of listing agreements in one simple question. And that's what I'm hearing on the exam. I didn't just pull that out of my fanny. I'm hearing that exam, that question's on the exam. A net listing, gang, as we migrate down the page, is illegal. A net listing is where, let's say I go, somebody says, Mr. Yarber, I want to sell my house. I say, you in a pickle? Are you motivated? You trying to get out? And he says, well, I am in a pickle, Mr. Yarber. And I think my house probably worth about 200, but all I owe is 140 on it. If you can get me 140, by God, and get me out of this pickle I'm in, you can have all the difference. I end up selling his house to CVS for $400,000 because there's going to be a zoning change in 6 months. That man was unaware of that. So a net listing is illegal because I, as a snake oil salesman, can be aware of something like this zoning change that you're not aware of, and I can present it as though it's going to be advantageous to you, when in fact I'm pulling the wool over your eyes. So a net listing, what makes it illegal is the commission isn't quantifiable. When I say everything over and above, that's a huge question mark. We don't know what that's going to be. Here's the funny thing. In that scenario, if I would have said, if I sell your house for 150, will you pay me a $250,000 commission? If he would have said, yeah, that's legal. Now, nobody's going to agree to that, but what I'm trying to prove to you is $250,000 is a quantifiable amount of money. Do you understand? So a net listing is where it's everything and over and above. We don't know what that's going to be. I don't know why they have 3 paragraphs under listings involving cooperating brokers. We've been talking about the MLS for 2 nights. I think this guy's got the ADHD worse than me. He's just throwing random things in there, forgetting he's done talked about it. Over here on page 162, we have had this conversation last night. How can a listing agreement go away? You remember us talking about this? First bullet, we helped them do what they said we was going to do. So on and so forth. Top of page 163. All you can do is highlight automatic extension clauses right there at the top. That's just to remind you when you're flipping through the book outside of class of what we've talked about. Very top, second line, italics, automatic extension clause. Top of page 163. Second paragraph, I'd like for you to highlight broker protection clause. It is self-explanatory in that it does protect the broker. What does it protect the broker from, Mr. Yarber? From getting cut out of the deal. And here's how this works. Let's say I take a 120-day listing. On the 119th, no, let's say on the 119th day, I'm in my office, the listing agent, and I'm realizing this listing is about to expire. And frankly, I'm a little disappointed in myself, and I'm trying to, like a coach does after the game, see where the hell I went wrong. Because the house is in good shape. It's in a popular neighborhood. The economy's doing fairly well. I should have sold it, but I didn't. Coincidentally, on the other side of town, the owner of the property that I had a sign in his yard, remember, it's 119th day, listing expires tomorrow. One of the men that goes to church with the owner calls him up and says, I drove by your house today, going through your neighborhood. Saw you selling your house. Me and Carol have admired your house for years. I'm heading to your real estate agent's office right now to make an offer on your property. And the owner of the house says, the hell you are. Wait 2 days and then come see me. Do y'all see what he's trying to do? Mm-hmm. Because if it's a $300,000 house at 6%, that's $18,000 he's trying to save. And he's trying to say, if you wait till Wednesday, I'll have some wiggle room. Okay. So the broker protection clause is a period of time, negotiable. So I'll use 30 days as an example. Let's say that the listing period is the cowboy, as the horse, and the broker protection clause is the cowboy. It's a period of time that piggybacks the listing. I gave you an example of 30 days. So in the listing agreement, basically there's a clause that tells the seller, hey, if after this listing agreement expires, if you sell the property during the broker protection period to someone that was introduced to the property during the listing, then you still owe me a commission. And guys, this used to be difficult to ascertain, but now with lock boxes, there's a recording of who opened the door and what time they opened the door. So you have a traffic history. And you have a showing history, all this. So yeah, broker protection clause, very self-explanatory in that it protects the broker from People trying to cut them out of the deal. Middle page 163, the listing presentation. What would you think the listing presentation is? This is where you get a call. Mr. Yarber, we want to sell our house. We've heard we can't go wrong with you. That's an easy listing presentation because I'm going to walk in presumptively, assuming I got the deal, and that's the way I'm going to talk, and that's the way I'm going to act. But if I hear you want to sell your house from a friend, and they give me your phone number, and I call them up, and you don't know me, I say, hey, we have a mutual friend. They told me you might be desirous of my services. Can I come see you tonight, drink a cup of coffee, and lay out what I can do for you? Now, this is a presentation where I'm going to be literally selling myself. I'm going to be trying to convince them to do business with me. Sometimes in a listing, you may know ahead of time. Mark, I'm just letting you know. My third cousin works for Century 21, and we thick, so I'm probably going with her. You better sell me something tonight when you come over. Now I got to come armed with all my talents. So listing presentations can vary depending upon a given set of circumstances. Guys, I have seen very sophisticated listing presentations, and I've seen the most unsophisticated listing presentations. I don't think you need to write it out and memorize it like an actor memorizes a script. I was always a checklist-driven person. I always had if I created a manila file folder for someone, let's say I'm going on the listing presentation, I have my listing presentation checklist on the inside folder. Give kids noogies, pet dog, compliment their design of the interior of the home, talk about how long you've been in the business and how much you enjoy it. And then now begin talking about the market, how many listings are currently available, what percentage of original asking price your company normally sells property, all the hard data. But I just had a checklist, an order of what I wanted to talk about. Okay. And then let's say I get the listing. I tear that off. New listing checklist. Input in MLS, put sign up in yard, create fact sheet. You know what I mean? Order title prelim, blah, blah, blah. And then we get an offer and we accept it. Hell, now we got a contract. Throw that away. Now I got a contract. Now I'm going to set up the closing. I'm going to order my title. I'm going to do all those things. So yeah, you may be like me. You can't remember. I don't know if you're having memory issues. We all are experiencing memory. Looking for our keys and our phone all the time. Can't remember where we put our fob, the remote to the TV. So in the modern day, you'll drive yourself crazy if you try to rely on your memory, especially as you evolve. And, you'll get to a point, you got 18 listings in your pipeline. And you know what happens when you got 18 listings? Things begin to get muddled. You can't remember people's names, even when the last time you was at the, So, yeah, I always relied on checklists. And this is old school, tickler files. I imagine nobody in here knows what a tickler file is. I'm going to give you something to Google. But, yeah, I have a friend named Alan. He's my age. He works for Keller Williams in Atlanta. He's sharp as a tack. I'm so jealous of him. He don't know it. He's good looking. He's funny as hell and smart as hell. I mean, he's got it all. And he's good with the technology. And when he goes in on a listing presentation, he's got a projector. He's got an app on his phone that controls the projector. He's got pie charts and bar graphs and demography and data. And it's very impressive. I don't think you necessarily have to do that. And then the majority of people I know, they just have small talk. They go in the living room, start talking. You went to what high school? Do you know Jimmy? I lost my virginity to Jimmy. He's crazy. He's in jail. Did you hear that? And you just sit there and talk for 2 hours, And then, at the end of the 2 hours, you want to go ahead and get this damn paperwork done? You just start flying through it. Now, guys, I'm going to tell you, they deserve more than that. I don't think they necessarily deserve the Bill Gates, but they deserve more than some small talk. So you just kind of find a happy medium. But the point is, you ain't got to impress nobody and be all robotish. People do business with people they like, and they feel comfortable with people who don't take themselves seriously. Now, don't get me wrong. You have to back that up with good product knowledge and good industry knowledge. But, yeah, you don't have to get intimidated with your listing presentation, but it is definitely something you will learn much when you get in the office. And the best way to learn crap as a newbie? Shadowing. You know, just like a Walmart. You see Walmart, somebody shadowing the cashier. You know, and guys, you got to be assertive. Guys, this world is run by people who don't give a damn and ain't gonna wait on somebody to offer to help them. So when you get brand new in the office and you done made your introductions, you start looking around and go, who in here got a listing presentation coming up soon? You do? I'm going with you. Okay. Notice I didn't ask. I'm going to go with you. And I'll tote your stuff. You can introduce me as your assistant, make you look like a big shot. I just want to be a fly on the wall. That's all. And who in here's got a showing coming up? You do? I'm going with you. You get the gist. Who in here's got a closing coming up? I'm going with you. Who in here's got, you get it, got an open house. Go see how a pro does an open house. So you got to be assertive. And 82-year-old man that was my mentor when I came into business, he said, you just got to be the imposer. You impose on people. Don't ask somebody to help you. Tell them, say, you may be one good deed away from heaven. You might die on the way home from work. I'm trying to help you get to heaven. Can I have 30 minutes of your time? I want you to explain these 3 damn paragraphs in a purchase agreement. But you have to, that 82-year-old man told me, he said, Mark, you got to get naked in the name of humility. We all carry around that psychology that we don't want to look stupid. You know, because in 5th grade, if you did something stupid, now the bullies are thumping you in the ear, slamming you up against the lockers, you know. So we just clam up. We don't want to look stupid. And we carry that psychology into our modern life. Man, when you get in the office, you look at somebody and say, I'm dumb as a damn hammer. And when you sit down to show me how to fill out this contract, pretend I'm in 3rd grade. Do not use a word bigger than a 3rd grader would know. Get the learning you need. Demand it. Quit. Don't wait for somebody to volunteer to help you. Because it only takes about a month to figure it out. And then it'll be old hat. This is not brain surgery. We grew up in homes. We have a fairly comfortable level with homes. It's not some contraption that we're trying to sell, and we got to learn all the parts to be able to explain it. I got off on a rabbit trail, but a part of a listing presentation you see on the 2nd paragraph is the comparative market analysis, a CMA, highlighted. Guys, your first significant task at hand when you list a property is to arrive at a competitive asking price. And believe it or not, there's more to that than you would think. But a comparative market analysis is our watered down version of what an appraiser does. Okay, we're basically just going to look for homes comparable to our subject property, our listing, see what they sold for. You know, you got to be mindful of how far away the comp is and stuff. But again, this is something you'll learn. It doesn't take long to learn it. And then it's old hat. And then one day you'll be with some other people thinking back on your rookie year. Turning the page, 164. This is info needed for a listing agreement. But, you know, I'm very resentful of y'all coming into business now. Y'all got crap that we didn't have 15 years ago. You will have this information available at your fingertips because your company will pay for courthouse retrieval. You can get everything in the courthouse right there. It's a beautiful thing. You're not going to have to go to the courthouse, work that damn microfiche. Over here on page 165, you know, they're talking about a listing contract, and they're going to attempt to break out some of the things that are on a listing contract. Believe it or not, this is not important for the exam. Over the next 8 pages, you're going to see an example of a listing that the publisher got from a realtor in Minnesota. I don't recommend that you sit there and read this line by line, but I do recommend that you peruse it. And that just makes me sound smart. I do recommend that you peruse it and at least get the gist. Get the gist. And now we're over here on 172, page 172. I want you to bracket the bottom half of page 172 and make a note to yourself to study that outside of class. That there are 4 different ways they can ask you commission questions. They can say, Carol made $16,000 on this deal, and the rate on the listing was 6%. What was the selling price? So you may have to back into something. Or they may tell you the selling price and the rate and ask you what the commission is. Or, whatever. They may tell you the selling price and the commission paid and ask you what the rate was. So all four of those are possible ways they could ask commission questions. So, if that's in your wheelhouse, just spend a little time on it. Again, the next couple of pages, they're just breaking down items that are within the listing agreement. Nothing is significant enough for me to sit here and spend some time on it. And then right here on page 175, same crap we've just spent over the last 10 pages, but the buyer's part. So guess what? When you turn the page, you see about an 8-page buyer agency agreement from a realtor that provided this to the publisher in Minnesota. And we're done. So 8:43, guess what? We will be done at 2 minutes till 9. So we get out 30 minutes early. So let's do our 15 minutes. Let's be diligent, guys. Our midterms next week. It's Tuesday. So do the flip back on the quiz. We ain't trying to see how many we can get right. We're trying to break every question down and learn it. I'll come back and check on you. See y'all tomorrow. Keep hanging out and reading and studying. All right, gang, you heard me dismiss my class. We can call it a day. Tomorrow night at 6 p.m., we will be doing chapter 11. So after tomorrow night, we will have covered chapters 1 through 11, which is half the book. Therefore, the midterm is going to be on Tuesday. Take advantage of the portal. Take a lot of practice quizzes. Take advantage of Quizlet. Take advantage of using your student code in the waterandrealestatepractice.com. So, guys, virtual student, you can hit us up on the My Real Estate Schools Facebook page if you need us. Until tomorrow night at 6 p.m., we'll see you then.